I'll explain it all next week in class. But I want to take a little bit of time to orient you to the class, and then let the returning A&P2 students who had me last semester make sure everybody's comfortable with how Blackboard works. So to explain what's going to go on today, I just want to show you this list. I'm not going to necessarily go through all of this in detail here. A lot of these things I want my returning students to help people with. First off, those of you that did not have me for A&P1, I use a different book, but you don't have to buy anything. The book I use is free. It's through what's called OpenStax. It's an online ebook, whatever you want to call it. If you prefer a physical version of the book, you can buy that through Amazon.com. Just search for OpenStax and you'll find all their books. You're only paying for printing and binding, so it's $50 some odd to get the book, as opposed to the $300 to get the book for other A&P classes. There's not a lab manual or anything like that. The books that you might have from A&P1, if you took it from somebody else, you're welcome to keep, and they're additional resources. I just don't use them in the class. They say many of the same things, but to follow along with what the reading for the course is, you'll want to use the OpenStax book. I want to be sure everybody that can log into Blackboard, and that's what I want the other people in the class to help with if you aren't familiar with that. In Blackboard, I want to show you how to get to the material for each week. I want to talk about reading and something new for everybody called Concept Coach. I want to point out where the online content is, show you where the chapter assignments are, and please, the returning students need to be sure that everybody understands that there are 4 parts to each chapter, that you need 80% to move on from part 1 to part 2, part 2 to part 3, part 3 to part 4. Part 4 does not have any score requirement. You'll get to redo assignments as many times as you need to make that 80% score to move on. The score that needs to be 80% will be averaged across all of those attempts. There are due dates for everything that should keep you on track to complete the course in a timely manner. However, sometimes life gets in the way, I understand. So the due dates are sort of suggestions. If you can't make it by the due date, you can submit assignments late. Just understand that late assignments will make it hard for you to move on. I have to check off late assignments. So if you do part 1 late, you can't do part 2 until I check it off. And then when you do part 2, you can't do part 3 until I check it off. And then if you've done part 3, you can't go on to part 4 until I check off part 3. So getting those done on time helps you move through the assignments easier, but there is no penalty to your score if you have to do things after the due date. Don't use that as an excuse to put work off, because that's almost a guarantee to do poorly in my class. Also, there are lab quizzes and practicals. I will talk about the practicals when we get closer to those in a few weeks, so that you know how to prepare for them. But if any of my returning students want to let the new students in on how those work, feel free to describe them. So let me go to Blackboard real quick. Over on the left-hand side, this menu has been broken down into all the materials that you're going to need to work through for the semester. You should have gone into the Before the First Class folder and done what's required there. If you haven't, please do. There are extra credit points associated with getting those completed. Also, there's something about Concept Coach in there, which I'm going to talk about in a little while. But if you did the Concept Coach thing in here, you might need to redo that because of problem with it that I had already. Then following that, each of these links goes to the material for that particular topic. In each folder, it's pretty much the same. It starts off with, with the week's goals, what I expect to do for the week and what I expect you to get out of that material. And then there's a link to the reading, the online book. There are other versions of the book that you can go to. if you'd like to download a PDF or an ebook, or again, if you want to purchase the physical copy through Amazon. I'll go into that link in a second. That's followed by the online content. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. And then the assignments you need to complete. Now, what we're looking at right now is my version of Blackboard, so it looks different from what you see. You will only see part 1 when you first go into one of these folders. Part 2, 3, and 4 will appear once you've completed the previous part to the appropriate level, 80% averaged across all your attempts. And then you'll have lab stuff at the bottom. For the blood chapter, which we're in right here, there's a link to an online site. There's a blood typing game to help you understand how that works when we get to it. But then also there's a lab quiz that you'll need to complete. Now, let me go into the reading. OpenStax, that's in charge of this book, has done something a little bit different, or a couple of things different. First off, those of you that are returning, they actually did this in the middle of last semester, but they've changed the way that they've organized the book simply in how they number chapters. It used to be Unit 4, for example, would be Chapter 1 in Unit 4, Chapter 2 in Unit 4, Chapter 3 in Unit 4, Chapter 4 in Unit 4. Now they've just sequentially numbered all of the chapters throughout. So blood, for example, is Chapter 18 of the entire book. It's kind of nice they did that. The online version was very modularized with the units and the chapters the way that used to be. That was kind of confusing. But the printed version of the book and I think the PDF version had the sequential chapter numbers, but now everything's the same. And it's kind of useful because I always think of, blood as Chapter 18 or the nervous system as Chapter, what would that be, 14. So it just makes more sense to me, and I think will make more sense to students. So the contents here is in a left-hand menu. You can open or close as you need if you want more screen space to read. At the end of each section, so 18.1, the overview of blood, ends with, come on, eventually here, a chapter review section. Now, in the printed book, in the regular versions, in here, there's questions just typed out that you can sort of go over and see if you understand what's going on. Concept Coach is that same material, the same questions that are in the regular book. They've just been incorporated into a new system that you can work on. And you're going to be required to complete these chapter reviews for each section of the reading for each week before you come in. If you have them done on time before class, then you'll get 2 points. If you have them done after class, but you get them done, you'll get 1 point. And if you don't do them, then you'll get 0 points for them. This is a pilot program with OpenStax, and it's possible there are some problems, and I've already found one problem that I fixed. When you first go into Concept Coach, and many of you have probably already done this, you hit the Launch on Concept Coach button, and it'll take you to a screen that looks like this. And actually, yesterday when I pulled this up, the screen looked a little different. But anyways, it looked like this. And you're going to enter a 2-word enrollment code. Now, the problem that I came across before was that the enrollment code that I had, and this was my fault, not the Concept Coach's fault, the enrollment code that I had for all of my classes was the same. I forgot to change it out. And it's just been a rough week here, so I just forgot to do that. So if you have already done this, I'm going to drop you from Concept Coach, except for the one class with the enrollment code was correct. And so you'll have to do it again because you won't be enrolled in class. I'll show you where to get that enrollment code again. It's in there before the first week, but it's now correct for each section. So type that in, hit enroll, and it'll take you to Concept Coach. I'm not going to do that to show you what it looks like because, oh, actually, I can because of how, oh, shoot. No, I can't. I'm enrolled in my teacher, I'm logged in as my teacher account here. I can't do it because I'm not a student. But you'll go in there, it'll give you a question. I think it has a blank space for you to type in an answer. And then after you do that, it goes to a multiple choice version of the question. And the idea here is it gives you a chance to work through the question, see if you understand it, and then give you a chance to answer it with options in front of you. Again, it's a pilot program. I want to see how it works. So do this before each class for the chapter that we have for that week. Now, to get that enrollment code, it's in the before the first class section. Now, I'm in the Tuesday afternoon sections Blackboard. So this, what you're about to see, only technically applies to the 12:30 Tuesday class. But if you're in the 11 o'clock class or you're in the Thursday class, the words will be different. So go down here to where it says signing up with Concept Coach. And this 2-word code is what you enter for enrollment. Yesterday, if you did this, or before this morning, if you did this, that 2-word code was different than what you see here. And that was my mistake. So if you're in the 11 o'clock class, or you're in the Tuesday afternoon class, or also the Tuesday night class, please redo that. If you're in the Thursday class and you did this, you're fine, because that was the enrollment code I had. Do not use this enrollment code unless you're in the 12 Thursday, Tuesday afternoon class. If you're in the 11 o'clock class or in the Tuesday night class, please go into your version of Blackboard and find this enrollment code for your class so that you sign up with the right one. Okay, so that's getting into Concept Coach, and that's going to be practice questions that you're going to do before each week when you come in. You're not going to be graded on how you do on those questions, just on the fact that you've completed the assignment. 2 points if you do it before class, 1 point if you do it after class starts, 0 points if you never do it. And that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, nope, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah. I hesitated there a little bit because lymphatic system and immune system are the same chapter, but we'll count those as separate. There's one section in lymphatic system that you'll do that week, and then the rest of the chapter is immune system you do the following week. But anyways, 12 different assignments. If you do them, you get 24 points. If you do them late, you get maybe 12 points if you do all of them late. And obviously somewhere in between if you do a mix of some of them on time and some of them late. And if you do none of them, you'll get 0 points out of 24 for that assignment. So that's Concept Coach. Now, other assignments, again, I want my returning students to help everybody understand exactly how they work, but I do want to point out a few things. First off, in the sensory systems folder, the week 1 folder, there is an additional assignment in here called the Syllabus Quiz. If I had been there today, this is what we would be doing in class, like I did it last year with my MP1 classes. Obviously, I'm not there, so instead what I'd like you to do is to go in and do this assignment in Blackboard. It's a series of multiple choice questions and true and false questions about the class. To prepare for this, go into the before first class section and watch the syllabus prezi here at the bottom. Also go into the syllabus section and read that, and then complete, come on, syllabus section, there we go, and read all of this, and then complete those questions. Some of the questions in there are not officially from those sources, but rather they're questions to see if you understand how the course works. Some of the, what's the word I'm looking for? Some of the true-false questions are just hopefully common sense questions if you've understood the material that I've given you about the syllabus. So please prepare by reading for that stuff. The other thing I want to point out is the online content. So in each folder, each weekly folder, you'll see another folder inside like this. It says online content. Inside of that is a link to a presentation. Now it says Prezi because that's the website I use for these presentations, but those are basically lectures. I started preparing all of this last semester as I knew what was coming up in my life and what I needed to do to be ready for this semester. About 2 or 3 weeks into the semester, one of my students suggested breaking these up. So the first one you have here is one long presentation. Might be an hour. I don't think it's more than that, but it's me explaining things in a presentation format. I think it'll be pretty easy to understand. Now, this is a long chunk, and you might not be able to sit there and watch the whole thing at once. So please feel free, if you need to break it up into bits. Watch 10 or so minutes at a time. In later chapters, oh, my computer's slow. Okay. So for instance, for the endocrine system chapter, I think this is the first, yeah. Oh, okay. I've broken it up into smaller bits. Each of these is supposed to be about 10 minutes long. They might be a little bit longer than that, but some concepts didn't quite fit into the 10-minute limit I was giving myself. Now, if I go into blood, I think this is where I'll be able to show you. Nope. Okay, let me just jump on to, I guess it's in heart. Another suggestion I got from students is to tell them, there we go, how long each section was. So here I started putting a timestamp. So not all of them are necessarily under 10 minutes. Ooh, and the cardiac conduction pathway is really long because that's a rather involved section. Okay, heart wasn't the best example to show you this, but they're supposed to be bite-sized chunks that you can get through. And later in the semester, I got better and better at doing that. But the timestamps here will tell you when you sit down and do number 3, you really need to have 20 minutes set aside to pay attention to that. It's better than, having to sit down and figure out how much of an hour-long presentation you need to watch, I suppose. So you want to watch these. Now, these are like lectures, so I would strongly suggest that you treat them like lectures. Take notes, be sure that you're paying attention to everything. Don't have this going in one window and something else in some other window and not really paying attention. Consider this class. Consider this where you get the information. Having this material in front of you before you come into class will make you prepared for what we're going to do in class. And I'll be able to make sure that you understand the tougher concepts. The anatomy of the heart or the location of the heart, for example, might not be that tough to understand on your own, but the conduction pathway or the cardiac cycle, those types of things I might need to spend a little bit more time on. And if you have a basic understanding of that, it'll be easier for us in class to get to the, I can't resist myself, the heart of the matter, to understand what's going on there. So other weeks, I have certain things that we're going to do. For example, the week for blood, we'll definitely be doing a blood lab, and we'll be dealing with blood typing. We might try typing your blood, although it's not the most reliable test in our lab. Respiratory system, for example, I think I have a case study that we'll be dealing with there. The immune system, I have a special thing there. We're going to see how fast people can recover from the plague. No, just kidding. Anyways, so there are a few things that we're doing in class that depend on you having watched and prepared by going through the online content. So please do that before you come into class. Okay. So again, my returning students, I'd really appreciate it if you'd help everybody get comfortable with these ideas here. And I also, in my AMP1 class, which, not that I love them more or anything like that, I went in because I didn't have any returning students to help them through. A couple of students really wanted me to lay this out in front of them. So here's what you need to do each week. before you come into the class, you should read the chapter in the book, complete the concept coach material for each section. Remember, you get 2 points if you do that on time for each chapter. And watch the online presentations. You'll be prepared to come into class. And then after class, you'll do the assignments, parts 1 through 4, and do the lab quiz associated. There are a couple of weeks we don't have lab quizzes. So if you don't see a lab quiz, there's not a lab quiz to do. But if you see a lab quiz, you need to do it. And then after a particular class, go in the next folder and start treating that as what you need to do before its class. So you'll sort of do this over and over again every week. Unfortunately for this week, you probably didn't do the material before the class because you're just finding out about it now. So this week, you need to do the before the class stuff for sensory systems, and then do the after class material for sensory systems, and then do before the class material for the autonomic system. And then next week, we'll do the autonomic system, and then you'll do its assignments and prepare for the endocrine system, and then we'll have class on the endocrine system, et cetera, et cetera. Just here at the beginning, you have to sort of run to catch up a little bit. Let's see. I also wanted to point out a couple of new things in the syllabus. Let me pull that up. First off, I have a frequently asked questions section here. Hopefully that'll be a good place for you to go to understand things that I deal with a lot of people. Let's see where I want to go. The big new thing in the policies here is in the attendance. In this boldface section here, I've added in since last semester. You need to be present really for all the classes. You're going to do best in this class if you're present. If you miss more than 2 meetings in the first half of the semester or the second half of the semester, you will not be allowed to take the in-class practical test. If you miss more than 3 classes for the whole semester, you will not be eligible for any assistance at the last minute to get your grade up. So let me go back to the schedule for a second and explain that a little bit. So here on week 7, we have the lab practical. That's when you come into class and we take an in-class test over the first half of the semester's laboratory material. If you've missed 2 days within the first 6 weeks, you will not be allowed to take that test. And then if you miss 2 days within the following 6 weeks, following 6 weeks, you will not be allowed to take the second lab practical. The last week, which is a 10th for the Tuesday classes, is scheduled to have an optional dissection lab. That doesn't count towards not attending class because it is optional. But if you miss any of the 6 weeks here with material, 2 of them, more than 2 of them, then you will not be allowed to take the in-class portion of the practical. There is an online portion of the practical which you'll be able to complete. You'll just get a 0 for the in-class section. It's possible to still pass the class if you don't take these, but there's no way you can get better than a C, and probably not better than a D if you've got 0s for these. So if you're going to blow this class off, drop it. You need to commit to this class. Okay, if you're going to be missing a bunch of classes, you're not going to do well. Keep that in mind. Also, I need to reiterate this because some people don't understand. When you do miss a class, or if you're late to class, you have an additional assignment to do, which is called a makeup assignment. I'm bad about keeping on top of who's required to do those. So always, if you're unsure if you need to do it, ask. But when you come to class on time, then you're exempt from that assignment and doesn't count toward your grade. You're still welcome to do it if you want to use it as a review assignment, but it will not count towards your overall grade, which is a benefit, trust me. I've had students that do it when they don't need to, and they're exempt, so it doesn't count for their grade. And I just, to see what happens, I unexempt them for a second, see how it changes their grade, and re-exempt them before I submit the final grades. And every time I've done that, the final grade's gone down a point or two. It might not affect the letter grade, so it might go from a what would that be? Say 89 to an 87, which is, both of those are a B plus, but it is in the end bringing the grade down. And if it went from an 88 to an 86, I would bring a B plus down to a B. So there's not a benefit to doing these for extra work, other than it might help you as a review. But you will be required to do those. And I'll explain that in class next week a little bit better so that everybody knows what's required. For this week, you'll want to go in and look at the makeup assignment. The two videos there on the eye and the ear are really necessary for completing the eye-ear lab quiz, just because obviously we're not going to be going over that this week. So watch the videos in the makeup assignment this week. If you want to complete the assignment, you're welcome to, but you don't have to. And then you do have to complete the lab quiz. Just use those videos of the makeup assignment to prepare you for the lab quiz, along with any of the reading that goes with it. So I hope all of that helps you understand the class. And please, all of my returning students, feel free to sit down with the newer students and help them if they don't understand. Hopefully there are some Chromebooks available in the class for you to use if you need to sit down with somebody and have them log into Blackboard and see what's going on. And if they're not in the class, please ask somebody where they went. When you're comfortable with this material, whoever's covering the class for me will let you leave. But expect next week that we will be in class the whole time. And I'll see you next week. Take care.